as well. All right, some of it is the latest, greatest, but we try and bring you weekly news, weekly updates. So we're going to have a different show this week. We're just going to talk about some of the stuff we've been seeing in the media relating to property. My co-host Charanjit's with me. Say hello, Charanjit.
Hello, hi everyone. Hi.
Yeah, you've got to put more 50p's in. You're frozen on the screen. Come on.
Okay. All right, is that better? Okay, I'm unfrozen now. So, hi everyone. Right,
great. So, tell the truth. You put the 50p's in, right? Yeah. So that's what's going on. This is what's going on in the background. We're peddling in the 50p's as fast as possible. Right. Okay. What am I doing with my? Oh, I'll leave the virtual background. Right. So we thought we'd do a different show this week, and I saw it on the news. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. They're talking about mortgage prisoners, and I thought that was quite interesting because although we might have missed it, according to the government, we're trying to get into a recession now, yeah? And it's a holdover from the mortgage prisoners are basically a hangover from the last recession where 2008, all these banks went belly up, bankrupt, as they would say. And the government had one, Northern Rock, which had to take over and they sold it off. And what they did was a little bit cheeky. They then got hold of the assets and they sold some of those mortgages, bundled them together, and then sold them to what they call private equity firms, or firms that were just making a profit and they knew it was going to come in. And it's relatively safe because it's mortgages on property. So if you hold out. So anyway, so the report I saw this week, and I think it's on the BBC, was they're saying these they're not quite mortgage companies, but the private equity companies that keep running the mortgage. And they were overcharging more than the market rate. And as the rates have gone up, their rates have gone up. But unlike a conventional mortgage company, you don't have the option. So you're on a variable and some of it's quite high. And this lady was talking, her variable is about 7.8, which is shocking. Yeah. Mm. So her mortgage is doubled from 800 to 1,600 pounds. But if you've got a normal mortgage on a variable rate, your mortgage company allows you to switch products onto like a 2-year fixed. You know, you go from and they're sort of cheaper. A lot of people are doing this now. But it was interesting that, and this is where those companies only they're keeping the existing mortgages going, but their rates are higher. And the people with them can't really remortgage into another company for various reasons, but it's costing them a fortune. And I just wanted to get your view if you'd heard of this and if you'd come across this and what you thought about it.
Actually, I haven't heard about it, but I mean, obviously I do remember, you know, what happened in 2007 and 2008, and when, you know, people thought prices were going to continue rising and took out huge mortgages. And then, you know, what happened. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, this is a difficult situation, really, isn't it, for people who are in that situation? I mean, yeah, unless the value of their property stays above the value of the mortgage, they're going to be in trouble, right?
Yeah, but value of most properties, if we look around,
yeah,
have passed what they were 2008. So even if you bought them right at the peak. So, you know, I would say if we really need Ekel, he's sort of skiving off. We should have shoehorned.
Yes, we do. We do, yeah.
We've got the mortgage guys coming in on the 23rd when the bank rates announced.
Okay, so we're talking about people who bought at that time, 2000.
Yeah, people who had mortgages with, say, Northern Rock or one of their offshoots or one of those.
Right.
What do they call them? Zombie banks, I think, is a term that's sometimes used. So, you know.
So the problem now is not the value; it's more the cash flow. Can they afford to pay?
Well, you know, if your mortgage is 1,600, of course you can't afford to pay it if you were paying 800. But I think sometimes it's like they had a mortgage at that time and their age criteria doesn't meet, or for whatever reason, you know, transferring mortgages is quite a lot of paperwork. And
so what are their options? You know, what people who are in this situation, mortgage prisoners. I mean, is their only option to sell and to get out of the contract?
I suppose they could sell and repay their mortgage. So that's. But then, you know, most of these guys are people who live in their houses. So I don't think they're buy-to-let people. You know, they don't buy-to-let mortgages. So
no.
It's a good question. What are your options? And perhaps rather than doing what everybody else does in terms of, so buy-to-let property investors know about mortgage brokers and so on. They don't usually go to the high street guys. They say, well, it might be worth those guys going to see a mortgage broker saying, look, what can you do? You know, is there any other option? So
absolutely, especially if you know, they are of the view that interest rates are going to go up further. You know, we may not be at the end, you know, of the rate hikes. I mean, I don't know, but you know, if I was in that situation, yes, I'd be worried.
Well, worrying doesn't help, does it? Right?
No, but I'd have to look at my options.
You know, don't worry. You can lie down on the couch, have a worry session in a minute, right? But, you know,
yeah.
Actually, that might be a great program. We just listen to people's worries, just state them, and don't give them any answers. You know, that'd be a great program. Yeah. What are you worried about this week? Well, I'm worried about this bird flu that's crossing over, and this other girl that died in Thailand or something, wasn't it? You know. Yeah, look, be careful how many things you worry about. Your brain's there to help you worry, right? So get off that stuff. It's
totally.
Right. So, no, talking about interest rates, I think the next meeting's on the 23rd. Are you gonna?
Okay.
You're obviously invited because that's why you can't remember, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to say to the Bank of England board in terms of interest rates?
I just don't know. You read all kinds of things, don't you, as to like which direction. We've been having this discussion, haven't we, for a long time now? Which way is, you know, and with ACL, obviously, you know, like which way have they reached their peak? It depends, I think, what you read. Some people think that they haven't, and other people. So I really, actually, if I'm honest, I really don't know.
Oh, come on. No, you can't keep saying I don't know. Oh, yeah. You got to.
I'm being honest. Honestly, I have to be honest. I suppose if I was to, yes, if I was to guess, I'd say that there's further increases. Yeah.
Further increases. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many do you reckon?
I think we'll probably find out this kind of like within the next few months, to be honest. I think
that's a bit like saying I don't know. Come on.
No. I think the situation is that as the data comes in, because, you know, there was always this question, are we in a recession? Are we not? And, you know, it takes 2 quarters, right, for us to be able to actually say we're in a recession. So I think as that data comes in, and it will be coming in the next, like, you know, we're going to have more history to see exactly where we are. I think then we'll know the actual state of the economy and then gauge better which direction, you know, things are going to go. Yeah. Because if inflation is still going up, then what tool do they have other than interest rates to control inflation?
That's a good politician's answer, right? So look, from what I've seen, the inflation is leveling off, as they say. I think not leveling up, leveling off, right? So it's peaked, it's coming down.
Yeah.
Now, normally, this is what they call, what's the word for it? Cost inflation. So it's not because there's not enough. It's an import inflation.
It's not demand pull, it's cost pull inflation, right?
That's the term, right? So
that's right. I can remember some of my economics. Yeah.
I remember none of those. I wasn't a good student anyway, right? Obviously, you're a better economic student than me, right? So look, it's because it's like an external shock. It's when the oil prices went up. Apparently, I read about it in the history books. I wasn't around then in the 70s, right? So it's when stuff goes up outside due to factors beyond your control. So it's not the pop and you know, things like electric we can't really do without. All right, we can sit in the cold and put more blankets on, but there's you need gas and electric at some point, right?
Mm, mm.
And what was interesting was when China undid its lockdown rapidly earlier on in the year, in January, they said, all right, that's it. You guys demonstrating, holding up all these placards, holding up all these white pieces of paper. That's it. No more lockdown. Off you go and go on. And it is quite horrendous, right?
Mm.
So I guess if they're unlocking, all the manufacturing stuff's going to come back. A certain Mr. P, who is not succeeding with the war so far, who can't be named because you might send the black choppers after me, right? So his war is going to carry on for a while, right? So everyone's got fed up with that. And so here's a conversation I had with a friend of mine about negative inflation, and I said we're going to see negative inflation next year, because it's something I'd heard and I hadn't thought about this. And he said, what do you mean negative inflation, right? So I thought about this further. So I'll give you an example. I think year before last, fill the car. This is obviously not scientific because, my car tank empties to a varying degree, but usually I fill it up when the yellow light goes on, right? Don't tell the mechanics that, they'll kill me for that, right? So anyway, you fill the car up, and then it used to be I could fill it up for about £45. Then it got to £99, and now it's about £75, right? So how did that relate to inflation? So if you take it back 3 years, your starting price was £45, for example. It's gone up to £99. So, all right, that'd be 100% inflation, but obviously it's not, right? So they put that in the inflation figures and say for that's at 10.10. Now, that was last year. I remember the peak, and I thought, bloody hell, £99. So I'm going to start walking or cycling. And obviously, I didn't do any cycling, right? So I carried on using my car. But from £99, you've got those in the inflation figures. That's what took you to 10.1%, say. Now, if that price then comes down to, say, £75,
Mm-hmm.
because your baseline is now £99,
Mm-hmm.
you've got a reduction in the price. That's a negative price increase.
Mm-hmm.
That's negative inflation. However, in your mind, I'm still thinking, it used to cost me £45 2 years ago. Human beings were a bit like that, right? We're a bit stuck in the past. So, and I'm thinking, well, it's gone up. It's like 50% higher than 45 or 40% higher.
Mm.
But if you looked at the official figures, you'd have a peak of 10 point, and then you'd have a downward. So that's the way I think about negative inflation. And I think you're going to get into negative inflation territory next year.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. But I think there's another factor we have to consider here, is this hidden inflation.
Well, that's when all these Twix bars are getting smaller and smaller, right?
Well, there's that as well. There's the hidden inflation I'm talking about is the devaluation of our currency, because they printed so much of it during COVID. And really, that's a little bit of a hidden, because what we could buy before, with X number of pounds, I mean, I'm not sure that we can, because the values have gone down. And maybe this is more impacts you for importing and exporting. So maybe this is
So you've got currency wars going on, that they keep devaluing the currency, right?
Yeah,
that's one aspect. But it's interesting what you could talk about hidden inflation. I heard someone talk about saying, look, the CPI that you get, it's just nonsense. The government just makes it up.
Yeah, right? I completely would agree with that too. Yes, I just have to know. I just have to go shopping and think, gosh, £100 used to buy me a lot. I can easily, £50 goes nowhere if you go shopping these days. And it's like, gosh, I mean, I went to Costco the other day. I couldn't believe the
prices. No, don't go to Costco. You're in trouble then, right? You go to Costco. You might as well just leave your bank account there. There's too many things to buy. That's why I never go there.
I couldn't believe the price of the olive oil.
I go to Costco is for the free food samples they give you.
Not anymore. I didn't see any free food, but it was prices had even gone up in there, and I was thinking, right, okay, maybe it's not worth buying in bulk like I think I used to for some things. So yeah, I think it's very obvious.
Yeah, Costco,
Right.
no more free food. So, oh man, that's it. I'm not going there again. I haven't been there for a while. So I used to go in there for the free food, right? So you could go in
Yeah,
and keep doing the tasting, and that's it. You'd save your money on the meals. But actually,
yeah.
Costco is a interesting business example. So
Mm,
they make most of their money on subscriptions and just cover their cost. It's really super interesting. It's completely opposite of
really.
yeah. It's because a lot of their money comes from subscriptions.
Mm.
And apparently they're really hard with their suppliers. They say, it's almost the ultimate of customer is always right.
Well, it's a great shopping experience. I do love. I have up until now really loved shopping there. Like you said, you can easily like go crazy, and the product quality is generally quite good.
I hate that place.
Do you? Yeah.
Sorry. Are we looking to get a Costco sponsorship on this program?
No, no.
I think that's the end of that one, right? We'll
Yeah.
just throw that
Move
one
on.
to the ground. Yeah, Costco's a really interesting place. But back to inflation. So yeah, the way I look at inflation is pint of milk. When I used to run out of it, I'd run across the road. It used to cost me about £1, and then it went from 2.25 liters to two, and it shrank to 2.1 liters or something. Right now, you've got the white tops instead of the blue tops, and then now you buy a couple of pints of milk because I can't be bothered to go out twice. I just get it all in one go. It's like instead of £2.10, now it's £3.90, and I'm thinking £3.80 to £1.90 each. I think that's gone up a bit, right?
Mm.
So that's the way we see inflation. But on the question of interest rates, so I know you said you gave a wishy-washy answer. So basically, you're covering your bases, right? So getting ready to run for prime minister. So when Charanjit runs for prime minister, don't forget to vote for her, right? Might be launching a policy.
No chance.
So,
Well, if Rishi Sunak can do it,
well, yeah, it's interesting, right? Without wishing to fanboy Rishi, I think he's done better than the one who came in for 6 weeks, right?
Yes, he definitely knows his economics and his finance. Yeah.
And so look, judge for yourself. She blew the country up in 4 weeks, right? And then Rishi spent 4 months trying to get it back. So there you go, right? So I think this is what we want to watch for the interest rates. So far, they've been putting it up by 0.5%, 50 basis points as they pretend, as they say, right? We're going to come close to a peak when they put it up at 25 basis points or no base. So this one, I think they're going to put up by another 50.
Oh, okay.
Because these guys always overdo it. They start too late, they press too hard, and then they put the country. They're never good with the timings. They're always rubbish on these. If you look at their past performance, and I know the financial guys will say past performance is not an indicator to future performance. That sort of warning that they come up with. I think what they'll do is this time we're going to get another 50 points drubbing. But when they start putting it, at some point, they're only going to put it up by 0.25, and then they're going to stop. And I remember Akhil on the last program said, well, the US long-term rates have peaked. But here's another factor, and I wonder what you've seen of this in the market. Normally, in the last recession, when they put the points up, everybody's mortgages sort of went up quickly. And in fact, they put them down, so everybody's went down quite quickly, right? This time around, I think there's a lot more people that have fixed, whether it's 2 years, 5 years. And so it's taking more time for that to have an impact, which I think is a good thing. But until you actually see your mortgage payments go up, people say, yeah, think, bloody hell, I haven't got any money now. Can't go to Costco and do shopping now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I think we never thought rates were going to come down as much as they did. in that, because they came down and they stayed down, didn't they, for a while, which was great for everybody, right?
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
it was great, but you could see. I remember sitting on Zoom calls 2020 and saying, because I could see people paying 50 grand, 100 grand over the asking price just to get the house, and you could see this is going to end in tears. And they've done this before. I think there was a period where they were putting down stamp duty, and last time they did something like that, it caused the bubble, right? And I think this is what's caused this time.
Yeah, and I think you're right about more people having taken out fixed deals. I mean, gosh, I wish I'd taken out a 10-year fixed deal had I known.
What was the differential on the rate? So I know you get 30-year mortgages in the US, but 10. So, and I was speaking to another. That's a good point. I was speaking to another friend of mine. And he said he does 5-year fixed.
Yeah, I did 5-year fixed as well. Yeah.
I think if you do a simple enough spreadsheet, you compare a 2-year fixed to a 5-year fixed. The 5-year rates are higher. So by the time you get to 2.5 years, you've negated any benefit you've got.
Yeah, I think that's right. And from memory, when I think about it, I don't think there was a big enough differential to put, for me not to go for a longer rate. Now, I can't remember the 10 years. And actually, to be honest, I don't think I looked at the 10 years because I just kind of thought, no, 5 years is enough, But thinking about it now, if I could go back and I would have probably said, no, go for 10 years. But yes, yeah, I think that's right. I think it given the environment we're in now, that would have, it made sense. And it is concerning that when people do come off the fixed rates, I think you're right. I think that there are a lot of people, on fixed rates, and when those start to come off, then yes.
I mean, the other thing that's going to bite in April is all these electrics going up again. They're looking at going from 2,500 to 3,000 for the average.
With the electrics, with
the bills, energy.
The bills. Oh, the energy bills. Yeah. So there you go. That's another.
But yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it all adds up, right? Because it's like, and that's what you're effectively doing is taking, what do they call it in economics? You're the economics sword. What do you call it in economics? You're taking the demand out of the economy, right?
But are you? Because these are, things that everyday things that people, can't live without. So,
you just have to have wood burning stoves, right, instead of gas and electric. And they're going to ban those as well down in London. Yes,
yeah, exactly. I read about that too. Yeah, I know, crazy, isn't it? I mean, as long as we don't start getting power cuts, I think. So it's like, right, okay, we've still got, so could it?
You really want to go back to the good old days of the 70s, don't you? We got inflation, we've got an energy crisis, we got a war going on, right? So they had all of those three. And what are we missing? There's a council that's doing a 4-day week, right? So let's complete the 5 trilogy, not the trilogy, the whatever you call the fifthology, right? Not the quadrology, right? Let's complete the series of 5. Oh yes, what we need is power cuts. The charity suggestion of the week: bring back power cuts.
Doomsday. Yes, no.
Okay. Well,
I'm thinking positively. At least it's not going to be. That's what I'm trying to say. That this is things could be worse. So we should still be grateful. But
no power cuts.
Yeah, no. But everyone you talk to, on a serious note, everyone is talking about the cost of living crisis. Everyone you talk to, and it's. I think it's tough for industry, tough for companies who obviously, need to run their plant and machinery, whose costs have increased. So, yeah.
No, it's the restaurants I think about because, they guess. I'm sure the food portions are shrinking, right?
Yeah.
You go into a restaurant, they give you less rice now.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah, even the water, the glasses are getting smaller, right? So you drink less water because
Yeah.
they're still paid for.
Mm.
That's it. I'm out the. I've been scrubbed out of that restaurant. They're not going to let me back in. They say,
Yeah.
what are you complaining about proportions for?
Mm.
Uh, so we got interest rates coming in 2 weeks' time. Any other news on the horizon? Any other cheery?
I wonder if it's worth talking about, this annual tax on enveloped dwellings. Do you know anything about that?
On any what?
An annual tax on enveloped dwellings.
What's an envelope dwelling?
Envelope. So an envelope dwelling it's really what it is people who live. There's a whole reason for this is the people who live in like expensive properties, which are over £500,000. Yeah.
Right.
So okay, let me go back a step. So if you own residential property in a company structure, yeah. So if it's a dwelling is defined as a property that could be used as a residence, right? And it's in the UK, and it's valued at more than 500,000, and it's owned by a company. Then what you have to do is you have to file a return with HMRC, and that return is called the annual tax on enveloped dwellings. Yeah.
Okay.
And what you have to do is every 5 years, you have to have that property that's owned by the company and it's a residential property. You have to have it revalued. So that's again, HMRC.
Do you?
Yes, you do. And in April 22, you would have had to have it revalued because the tax that you pay is according to the value of the building. Yeah. But the thing is, if you've got a residential property in a company and you're letting it out, you can claim relief for that. If you've got a property that you're refurbing for commercial resale, you can claim relief for that. Yeah.
Okay.
So really, what this is for is if you're, for example, I don't know, an overseas buyer, you've bought a property in central London, it's owned by a company. You can't live in that property, and if you do, you'd have to pay tax.
Oh, okay.
So it's to capture that, yeah.
So
because people can use a corporate structure to benefit, but actually, so it's to stop people doing that, creating a corporate structure that would benefit them, but actually live in that house, themselves. You're not allowed to do that. So to deter people to do that, you have only if the property is above 500,000 in valuation.
that's most of London, even the ones in houses are over 500,000 now, right?
Yeah. So as long as they're not held in a company, if it's held in your personal name, that's fine. But if the property is held in a company and it's worth over 500,000, then you have to submit this return, and the 324 has to be filed by the end of April. So those dates are coming up. Yeah. So that's basically the sort of very basis of it really is. So you have to file a return every year to say, either you can, if you want to claim the relief, then you've got to state that yes, this property is being commercially redeveloped, or it's being let out, or or it's empty, so or whatever. And then but if you're living there, then you've got to pay tax on it.
You as the company owner have to file a return, right?
Yeah.
Not the tenant.
No, not the tenant. No, the directors of the company. Yeah.
So look, Section 24 comes in. Everyone's buying stuff in limited company now.
Yeah.
What you're saying is they've bought a special return for those properties over 500,000.
Yeah.
Bought in limited companies.
Yeah.
And you have to tell them what you're doing with it, basically, right?
You do.
Are you renting it to a tenant or are you refurbishing it?
Yeah, which is fine. If you're doing that, then you can claim the relief because that's showing that you're not actually living there.
But if you live there, you have to pay extra tax.
You have to declare that. Yeah. And no member of your family should be living there. You should not be renting it to some other member of your family. Yeah.
And this is taxation rules. This isn't mortgage stuff, is it?
This is taxation rules. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and because properties, if 5 years ago you valued a property, it might not have kind of fallen into this, but with the increases in values, so a lot of properties are now going to be revalued above 500,000, will fall into this. So it might be something new for people to think about.
Bloody hell, another tax, right? The government love paperwork, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, it should be okay. It is paperwork. Yeah, it's another administration to deal with. Yeah.
We'll have to ask the tax guys when we get them on next. This is the first time I've heard of this. This is interesting. So,
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah, I have a central London, a client who owns a property in central London, so I kind of know a little bit about it. But yeah, it is the accountants, the chartered accountants who deal with this. Yeah.
So, okay, so I mean, I heard that people were buying sort of properties, tens of millions, 30 million, whatever, and because it was owned by in a limited company structure, overseas predominantly as well.
That's right.
If the property is owned by the limited company, you buy the limited company, you don't pay any stamp duty. You only pay stamp duty on the shares, right?
That's right, which is a much lower proportion. It's a tiny percentage compared to, that's right.
So what you're saying is if you then buy that property, the limited company, and you live in it, the government's going to get you the other way around. That's
right. Yeah. So for example, if the property is worth over 1 million, 1 to 2 million, what are the rates? Last year's rate was about 7,000. But if it's worth above 2 million, between 2 million and 5 million, you're going to be paying something like £28,000 of tax for the year.
Is that per year or per?
That's for the year. Yeah, per year. That's per year.
Wow. Okay, so they're getting you back somehow, aren't they? No, well, luckily for me, I only live in my house is only worth 50p probably, right? So nowhere near the 2 million mark, and
you're saved. Yeah,
I'm all right, Jack, as they would say.
Yeah.
I'm all right, Charity.
Yeah, and hopefully you've got it in your own name. Yeah.
No comment. No comment on the dodgy stuff, right?
Yeah. So I thought it might just be worth since those returns have to be filed by 30th of April. So
30th of April.
Yes, the next return for this year has to be filed in advance. So it has to be filed by the 30th of April, yeah.
Sorry, in advance.
So in advance of the tax year that's coming up. For the tax year 23-24.
You have to file that by the 30th of April.
That's right. And pay the tax in advance.
Well, pay the tax in advance, I get. It's the old partnership thing, right? And
yeah.
But this thing about filing it a year before, that sounds crazy. How do you know what you're going to do with it next year?
Well, I think that if you intend to live in it, then you would kind of know. You'd have to, and if Well,
if they said I intend to refurbish it, but I couldn't get the builders and my house broke down and I ended up living in it, what's the government going to do then?
I think we should get an expert to tell us more. I only really know just the basics, so I don't.
Let's pull up the tax guys, right? So that's a great, interesting discussion. Envelope, what's it called? Envelope returns.
It's annual tax on envelope dwellings, which is ATED for short. Yeah.
I think you're making that up.
I wish I was. I'm not. ATED.
ATED is not your version of TEDx, is it?
No. Afraid not.
The Americans have TEDx and we in the UK have ATED. Right, fantastic. That's what we need. Right. That's interesting. Anything else you got?
There you go. Got you thinking on that one, didn't I? Yeah.
But I'm going to have a sleepless night now.
You're going to be looking it all up, aren't you? Yes, I can send you something on it if you want to read it. Yeah. No, I think that was the only thing I thought I'd just throw in, since the deadlines are close, are coming up.
Well, anybody who owns a envelope dwelling,
which is a residential property owned in a company. Yeah.
Residential property owned in a company over 500,000.
Yes.
Is it an overseas company, or can it be a UK company as well?
It's that's a good question. My understanding it's a UK company, but I think that needs to be checked with the experts.
That's really cheeky of the government, right? So they got everybody to put stuff in a limited company, and now they're going to find new ways of taxing the limited company.
I mean, to be honest, if it's in a company, then that property should only be used for business purposes, right? So you shouldn't be living in it. So really, if you're, if you've got a residential property in a company, then you wouldn't be living in it, because it would kind of break a lot of rules. So yeah.
I mean, every time we do something, we're breaking a rule, right? Oh, here's a good one. Friend of mine said, you can't share ISP, it's illegal, it's in their terms and agreement.
Right.
So, you get internet providers, and then sometimes...
Oh, yes, right. That's what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, ISP.
Yeah.
Right.
Internet
Apparently you're not allowed to
providers.
share it across properties.
Oh.
Yeah, crazy.
Okay, there you go. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Like that. Well, he's a bit. I hope he's not listening. He's a bit of a geek on that stuff, right? So he said, "No, I read it. It's in the rules. I read the terms and conditions. Who the hell reads those terms and conditions?" Got to. But that's anyway. I don't think you could do anything without. No, we're all law-abiding citizens, of course. Just don't tell John Litton that I think he hates the government as much as everybody else does.
I think so. Yeah. Well, we won't be able to hide anything if they bring in digital IDs, right? So it'll all be recorded.
Well, they're all recording. I mean, haven't you seen Minority? Is it Minority Reports? What's the Will Smith film? Minority Reports is
Tom Cruise, isn't it?
That's that's not the one I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Will Smith and Gene Hackman. What was that one? It's a great film. You should watch it. It's end of 2000. It's damn, the name it's a bit like Minority Reports, but they're saying, oh, the government's been watching everything for the last 30 years. And guess what? It's true. They're all recording it. And I'm going to get pulled up by this GCHQ and so on, right? It's all being recorded, all this, there you go. As we see this on YouTube, they're subtitling it as it goes. And so now the computers can even, and there we go. We're going to get into AI. No, we're not going to get into AI. Don't go there. That's too big a subject, right? Right.
So did you want to say anything about mindset then? Any advice you would like to give people about mindset?
New part of the show, right? Yes. So we're gonna have a new part of the show called Mindset Moments. You start. It was your idea.
It was my idea. Okay. I think mindset is really important when it comes to business. In fact, you hear a lot of business people saying, actually, it's kind of mindset is 80% of you hear people like Tony Robbins saying that in terms of running the success of a business. And I think it's very like talking in just regarding the environment and what we've been talking about, interest rates and around property. It's very easy to go into fear, right? And say, oh my God, and then that can stop you from moving forward. So I think that's very much comes down to a mindset. It's like, okay, recognize, okay, no, you just can't go into a fear mindset, especially if you're operating in the current environment. I think as a business person, you'd find a creative way where you'd look at the opportunity, wouldn't you? Like we were discussing earlier, you'd say, okay, great, there's opportunities available because maybe prices are going to come down.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I wanted to say, really, is it's like a lot about what mindset you come into.
It's interesting, this topic of mindset, because someone said, well, they don't teach it in school, and I do think about it a lot, right? And I think mindset is the way I think about it is, if there's anything new take anything new, right? When you try it for the first time, you're apprehensive. Second time you say, okay, I've done it before, I can do it again, right? It's not going to be that bad, And the third time you say, yeah, right. And after the third time you say, yeah, it's easy, don't worry about it, we'll get through it, right? So in a sense, I guess that's how I think about mindset. Once you do the same thing 3 times, and in the old days, they'd probably call it experience, yeah? And it happens in any profession, any walk of life. Once you do something for the third time, you say, okay, it's not scary, you know. And what that's probably doing is saying to you, because mindset is fear of the unknown and how you deal with it.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost putting your mind through the pain it doesn't want to go through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very true. And we have all got very comfortable, haven't we?
I don't know what you mean. I refuse to leave my home. It's like, yeah. So, example, post lockdown, you get a bit nervous going back to those meetings, right? I still haven't managed to get out and get back to those meetings. Anyway. So look, yes. So mindset is interesting. I did a slide for a presentation once, and it's basically, if you can imagine an old blacksmith's forge, and what they do is they get a piece of metal, they put it in a fire, heat it up, put it on an anvil, and get a hammer and hit it with it. And I said, imagine that piece of metal is your mind. You're putting it in a fire and you're hitting it constantly. And that's how you sharpen your mindset. But the problem is nobody wants to go through the pain to do it. And I don't think it's something you could teach. You have to learn it by experience.
Yeah, that's interesting, because my take on mindset is like, are you a kind of half glass full type of person, or are you a half glass empty type of person? And it's like, just, you could be looking at the same glass and two people are going to look at it differently, right? Because of depending on their mindset and their perspective. So are you always looking at the problems, or are you looking at the opportunities? Again, mindset. Yeah. Are you a problem solver, kind of thing? Or are you going to just stay focused on the problem?
Yeah. So when you've got glass that's half empty, I always look at those glasses as, look, 50% is full of juice or water. The other 50% is full of air. You need both, right? So it's totally full. You just can't see it. And that's the way I look at it. It's like you're missing something. When we were running out of oxygen in 2020, people paid. I bought a set of cans for about 60 quid, but everyone's paying for air, right? Because they couldn't get it. So people miss that. Half a glass, all right, half full, half empty, but the other half's got air in it. You need that. So yeah, interesting. So interesting comment on mindset. So what's a mindset thing of the week for property then?
I think it is. It's like, don't get caught up in the fear. What do you think of what's going to happen next? And stay focused. Do you think that could be an idea?
Don't fear the fear, stay focused.
Yeah. Or feel the fear and do it anyway. That's the name of the
book. You can't nick that. Someone's written that already.
That's right. So he's written that already.
Yeah, we might need a book club, right?
But that's a good.
It's a good little book. It's a good little book. It's quite a small book, as I remember it. I read it.
Yeah, that's right. It is quite a small book. I read it ages ago too. Yeah. So maybe that's our message. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
We might have to start a book club. Right. All right. So
okay.
Thank you for joining us this week. Really interesting chat. So envelope property. What's ATED? Annual
tax on enveloped dwellings. You could just say tax on enveloped dwellings.
Annual tax on envelope. Is ATED, A-T-E-D.
A-T-E-D, yeah.
I'd rather have TEDx. Right. So thank you for that. Great shot on mindset. Feel the fear and maybe not do it and wait. Property, right? Because I think there's value in waiting at the moment.
I agree.
So mindset moment, feel the fear and wait to do it later.
Okay, thank you.
Right, see you next week.